Hey, this is Deepak here from DigitalDeepak.com. And today we have David Allen, the author of the best-selling book, Getting Things Done, with us. And he's doing an exclusive interview for Digital Deepak. And I'm very excited. And David, why don't you say hello to the audience?
Hello, Deepak. Hello, everybody. Delighted to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Yes. So I have read the book Getting Things Done, and I have also attended workshops. And there is a lot of things that entrepreneurs and digital marketers need to learn when it comes to being productive in their daily routine and being, getting things done in general. So, David, why don't you give us a very high-level introduction of what the Getting Things methodology is all about?
Sure. Well, I spent the last 35 years really researching what are the best practices that we all can do that allow us to have more space, more room, more control, more clarity in our heads. And your head's really a very bad office, that I discovered years ago. And the cognitive scientists have now validated that. If you try to keep more than about 4 or 5 things in your head, you'll lose perspective on all of them. And your head just wasn't designed to remember, remind, prioritize, or actually manage relationships between multiple things, more than about 4 or 5. That's it. You get more than that, you'll tend to be driven by latest and loudest. You'll tend to be distracted. You'll tend to have a pressure that you don't know where it comes from. You'll be waked up at 3 o'clock in the morning with ideas or thoughts or things you should have done, all kinds of things like that that are no fun. So I just discovered ways to get clarity, and it's actually nothing that you have to, you don't have to change yourself. You don't have to transform yourself as a human being. They're actually very simple practices that everybody does to some degree already. Mm-hmm. So, I uncovered what are the 5 steps that we all need to go through to get anything under control, whether that's your kitchen or your country or your company or your consciousness. Mm-hmm. And then what are the different conversations you need to have with yourself and sometimes other people at the multiple levels that you have commitments. And there are 6 horizons that we have made commitments with ourselves in order to get things done. So I've just identified sort of how do you get control and how do you get focus. And those are the really 2 core elements of self-management anyway. Mm-hmm. I basically and I didn't really so much make them up, Deepak, as I did recognize them. When things really work, we've all had better days than others, and what makes for a good day versus the others, and what are some of those behaviors. So I just uncovered what those were, and then uncovered the principle that's at play, in those best practices, and made those more explicit so that you could work them more elegantly, more completely, and keep it all much more current. So it sounds very simple, and it actually is relatively simple as a set of practices, but the results, if you actually implement them, can be rather profound.
Great. So I will just talk about some of the challenges that digital marketers in general face. So we have a lot of things to do, and whether we are doing an agency or a consulting, or whether we are working in a company as a digital marketer, usually it's a lot of things in parallel, and there's a little bit of activity in each. Like, for example, you want to set up your Google AdWords campaign or Facebook campaign. There is not a lot of thing you could do just sitting there. It's not like writing an article where you might spend 2 hours or 3 hours of work just doing one task. It's like, go ahead, set up a campaign, and then there is a bit of time that you have to wait before you start getting the results. And then you have to do something in analytics, and then you have to do a little bit of content management. Maybe you go ahead and approve comments on the blog, check the forum, and you keep going around these things multiple times. And sometimes that feels like you are losing track of what you are getting done. It feels like you are sitting and working the whole day, but you are not getting things done. That's how, end of the day, you feel very bad about yourself. So is there a way to organize this and so is it as simple as just creating a to-do list and just checking off things, or is there any way to think about this, like a different perspective?
Well, there's a yes and no answer to that. Yeah, basically your head's just a really crappy office. So anything that you can't finish the moment it shows up, that you still need to do something about, decide something about, or take action on, if you can't finish it in the moment, you better keep track of that somewhere beside your head. So you need some kind of tool. First of all, you need to decide what you need to do on those things. So determining, what the action step is, if there is some action you need to take, what exactly is that action you need to be reminded about? Is that a phone call? Is that a surf the web? Is that program something on the computer? What's the action that you actually need to take? Once you determine that, If you could do that action in 2 minutes, you should just do it right then, because that would take you longer to organize it than to do it if it's a less than 2 minute action. If it's longer than that, you need to ask yourself if you're the right person to do it. And if not, you need to hand it off, delegate it. And if you can't do that, it's a longer than 2 minute action, you can't hand it off, then that's where you need to keep an inventory of all of those actions that you need to do. And that just needs to be close at hand. So if you get any windows of discretionary time, you need to be able to see all of that inventory of possible things that you could be doing that would move the needle for you. So just keeping track of what are those things that move the needle toward end results. That's a key element. The first step in getting control is to make sure you've captured the things that have your attention. Frankly, most people, that's a big habit for most people to change, is actually write the stuff down, and make sure if somebody asks you to do something, if you can't finish it that moment they ask you, then you better keep track of that. And then the second step is you need to clarify what's the next action. And if one action won't finish it, whether there's a project you need to keep track of. So keeping a list of all the projects, that is the longer than one step things that you have on your plate, especially in the kind of job you're talking about. By the way, most mid to senior level professionals have between 30 and 100 projects. So don't feel like the lone person in the world if you've got 40 or 50 or 60. That would be average. And so trying to keep track of that in your head is impossible. So making sure that you just have a list of what are all the projects you got, right? So at the end of the day, the only reason you feel like you didn't do anything was you didn't do anything that you had tracked with something that made progress on these things you're committed to. And if you're letting yourself, if you're opening emails and closing them up and opening emails and closing them up, that's a huge waste of time. You need to make these decisions. What exactly is that? What are they asking me to do? What do I need to do with it? Is it trash or is it something to file, et cetera? So not letting things hang around so that your brain keeps running over this stuff. That makes a huge difference and gives you a much greater sense of progress during any of the time that you have. A question I would have back to you or anybody in that job would be, well, those things you said, well, we have to do this and we have to do this and we have to do that. Are you deciding that you need to do all of those, or are those demanding of your time as you sit there? Or is that your choice to jump around? So I'm curious, what are those things that show up?
I think most of the things that show up are something that you do yourself, but except that you are doing it in an unorganized way. Like, there is no routine to at least most of the digital marketers I know, including myself. We just open up the computer and we first open our email, and then we check our Facebook stats, then we check analytics, and then it's more like you are reacting to things like if an email comes and as you said, you do it multiple times. Sometimes you just don't remember that you checked those things and you check it again, like you check your email inbox multiple times. So this is, I would say, 70% of the time you are under control of what you are doing, but you just do it randomly. It's all over the place. 30% of the time, depending on the nature of the jobs, like if someone is working as a digital marketing manager in a company, they will be handed over more things than others. But if someone like a consultant or a blogger or an influencer mostly has to decide what to do on their own.
Yeah. Well, that if you feel like you're not making any progress, then you're just not keeping track of what you need to make progress on. That's why a list of all of your projects out in front of you.
Yes.
A projects list is one of the most powerful things, and very few people have one. A lot of people have little micro to-do lists and post-its they've stuck on things and lists all over the place, but that's not in any coherent, organized way where you can see the whole gestalt or the whole picture. See, if you've got 50 or 60 projects, it doesn't take you very long to look over all of that and say, gee, what do I need to do about each one of those? And as you know, if you've read the book and been to the training, one of the key success elements of these best practices is the weekly review. Once a week. Come on, you and I have the days coming at us so fast, many times you don't have time to necessarily get everything pristinely organized, but you better not let that go very long. And so, it seems like about every 7 days you need to as we say, pull up the rear guard and make sure you catch up everything. Make sure, hey, what's shown up that you haven't put on your project list yet? What's still out there? What's got your attention? So you don't have to go very far to see where to apply all of this. Just say, well, what's got your attention? That's because usually there's an inverse relationship between on your mind and getting done. So, things that are on your mind are not on cruise control. That means there's some decision about it you haven't made, or you haven't parked the results someplace you trust.
So it's somewhere getting bottlenecked and choked at your...
Oh, sure. I mean, there's no reason to have a thought twice unless you like the thought.
True,
right?
true.
I mean, if you say, gee, I need cat food, if that pops into your head a second time, you're inappropriately engaged with your cat. You got some commitment that you need to do something about your pet, and you're not handling it. And so there's part of your brain going, hey, come on, Deepak, what are you doing? And you need to shut up the monkey inside your head.
Yes.
You can't do that by meditating or drinking.
Yes. So, David, we all have watched a lot of your videos on YouTube and read the book and things like that. So, I want to ask you a question which might not be directly related to getting things done, but something I want to know what a person of your experience has thoughts about it. So, a lot of us go ahead and say yes to things in terms of projects. Someone asks us something and we don't have the courage to say no. We just say yes to please them, and sometimes we just say yes because we think we can handle it, but then it turns out that we can't handle it and we end up disappointing them, feeling bad about ourselves as well. So what is the art of saying no? How do we do
it? That's a tough one, especially if you like to please people and you like harmony and you don't like conflict and you don't like to disappoint anybody. And and I know I have very much that kind of personality, but starting to keep track of all your commitments and reviewing them regularly made the word no show up a lot easier for me. When you start to see how many things you're actually committed to, you start to become more conscious of, wait a minute, if I, especially once you catch this methodology and realize that you're going to have to write it down if you commit to it. Just out of my laziness, I'll say no because I'm just too lazy to write it down. Right. So just learning to keep track of what all of your commitments are makes a huge difference, and that moves you into, I guess it's an art. It just makes it a lot easier, in order to be able to do that, because it's easier to keep your integrity, and you become much more conscious of that. But if you don't know all the commitments you've made, you'll always overcommit. I've never seen an exception to that. Oh, I don't know how many things I have, so sure, bring it on. Oh yeah, oh okay, I could do that. You're right. Then at some point, it will come around and bite you in the butt. So just get older. Watch. That's another way you can improve the number of things you say no to. Maturity.
Great. So now why don't you let us know about your trip to India and what is going on in India in terms of getting things done, workshops, and and also tell us a little bit about how happy you are about the things that are happening, the response that you have seen here, and what is your future goal for India?
Yeah, well, we have a partner, our exclusive partner for GTD trainings and coaching in India, Calm Achievers, and Arif and Muhammad Ali. They're great folks. They're good friends. We've hung out together for quite a while. I've been to India 2 or 3 times already, and they've got another trip scheduled for me end of the month. Actually, I don't know. They just gave me my plane schedule, so I think I'm flying into Hyderabad, and I'm going to be touring 2 or 3 different cities. So I actually don't know what they have for me, but I think I'm going to be doing some promotional keynote speaking and meeting some press and so forth. So I would suggest anybody who's interested, whether I'm going to be somewhere that they could then come see me doing something, go check the Calm Achievers website. It's probably the best place to go.
Yes.
For that.
Great. So Arif and Ali Vakil are great friends of mine as well, and Arif's son goes to the same school as my daughter.
Ah, right.
So
big family. Yes.
So we meet at the school gate once in a while, bump into each other.
And to your point, or to your question about my experience so far, all the events that I've done in India were I think quite successful, and people seemed to be very hungry for this information, this methodology, and certainly very elegant, lovely people to
Mm.
engage with, and fabulous food. So
Mm. Yes, yes,
I've loved it. Yeah, it's great.
yes. So thanks a lot, David. Thanks a lot for tuning in, and we will be sharing this recording with the audience. And I hope it's going to get a great response. And looking forward to your visit to India.
Terrific. Deepak, me too. So lovely, lovely to cross paths.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.